Hi, I'm Rachel, and welcome to my NaNoWriMo 2023 finale vlog. No matter what happens, in just 4 days, November's gonna be over, and hopefully I'll be there with 50,000 words. It never necessarily seems that doable or completely 100% in the bag at this point of the game, but I am actually feeling a little optimistic about the types of work I got done over the weekend. Like I said at the end of my last vlog, I finally got over the hurdle of chapter 36 of my fantasy project, and I wrote chapter 37 like a skeleton sort of thing. Well, really what I did was I mapped out a couple of scenes and I interdispersed actual narrative with all caps notes to myself when I got stuck. And, you know, it's far from the completed chapter by any means, but it got me moving forward and past some scenes and some ideas for scenes so that I could just keep, you know, hammering out the big stuff and hammering out the words, more importantly. And so, funnily enough, I was sitting and doing chapter 37 skeleton stuff at the write-in, the DC NaNoWriMo write-in. And I realized that I was writing this scene where, for a long time really, my characters have been under the cover of darkness and ash from this volcano that erupted, and I have to do a little more research into that as well. And so it's been dark and gloomy. And then listening to everyone else during this write-in, I realized I was writing this dark and gloomy weather scene, while outside it was a dark and cold and gloomy rainy night. And I was like, you know, it almost feels like, you know, I'm writing my feelings into this, really, using the immediate inspiration of a sort. But now I'm moving forward into chapter 38. That is my goal for my writer's salon. I'm going to my final DC Writer Salon event of November, really. I mean, for me personally, my schedule is going to continue as usual, and I'll be back on the weekend. But I'm hoping to tackle chapter 38 as a skeleton, and I think we're going to actually move into, we just got to the capital, but according to my outline, my characters will be going to yet another place to try to coerce my main character's father into actually showing up and doing things that he doesn't want to do for reasons. So that's my plan, I think, for what I'll be doing at the salon. But first I do have to get to work and get my, you know, week started, but I'm hoping that, you know, my non-nano stuff will be relatively stress-free, please, 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 so that I can devote the majority of my mental energy to finishing this project. Let's do this. Like last year, I have glomped onto Heidi's videos at Listen I Have an Idea. Heidi makes daily NaNoWriMo update videos and has consistently made or surpassed the par. And I've found her so inspiring, and I hope maybe one day I'll be more like her. But in the meantime, it's just really fun to see her chugging away. She's a nano rebel herself this year, at least of a sort. She is chugging away at the second half of the romance novel she started last Nano.
They're ending at 11:16 with 1,738 words. Oh my gosh, you guys are so close. But nope, tomorrow is the day that we're gonna hit it. I am not staying up to write it today because today's vlog was not a good enough vlog to deserve a 50K word celebration. Tomorrow we're gonna dress up and we will look cute for our 50,000 words. Let's get those words on the NaNoWriMo website. We are so close. I know it, you know it. 1,738 words. We are feeling great. I will explain why we're feeling great in just a minute, not because we are that close to the goal. Okay, there we go. We have added our words. We are so close. My little calculator, though, showed me that we are quite a bit off. What is this? Why is this wrong? That is off by too much. That's 144 word difference. I have no idea where that came from. We will be writing until my Scrivener document shows I'm over 50,000 and not the NaNoWriMo word website. See this face? This is not a 50,000 word face. I need a full face of makeup. We need to celebrate. So we're waiting till tomorrow to hit those 50,000 words. A little while ago, someone posted to the Silver Spring Facebook group that this year's community tree looked a little weird. So
I've taken a jaunt downtown to see for myself, and yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of this. I guess it's a popper, not a tree, whatever that means exactly.
I was curious about this. It's kind of inspired by a pep talk that went down today, kind of, sort of. But I was wondering if y'all have ever had writing advice that you tried that didn't work out for you, and if you came up with an alternative. Because I think like there's a lot of popular writing advice out there, and you're like, oh, so like all the great writers do it, so I should do it too. And then sometimes you just find out it doesn't work for you. So that's all I was curious about.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, the one for me is very easy. It's like, there's so much writing advice out there. It's like, if you want to be a successful writer, you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, like right first thing in the morning. And I am not a morning person. My brain does not work. If I try to get up super early to write, not only will my brain not work then, but then it won't work for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I know that I do my best writing either like in the late afternoon, early evening. So that's my soapbox. You don't have to get up super early to be a writer.
Yeah, that's also the first thing I thought about, because I was like, I feel like that's a lot of like writers, like especially published famous writers, say that, and I'm like, I don't think I'll ever wake up at like 6 a.m. and just like write immediately after. Also, a quick question from Queen Jay-Z, who asked, how does he don't meet 50k words in a month? And yeah, you can still write and just continue and just log it in.
Yeah, actually, because I saw this, that I like the accountability format to keep yourself on track. So yeah, after November is over, if you still want to write, if you still want to kind of use those accountability tools, you can do that on the NaNoWriMo website. You can set your own personal goals at any point. So it doesn't have to be for 50,000 words, but you can set your own personal goal at any time of the year. Make it as long or as short, as big or as small as you want. But you can keep that habit going of going in and updating your word count and yeah, chatting with people and all that good stuff.
Okay, looking at the chat, I think a lot of people talk about how they don't use write what you know, which I thought was interesting.
Learning as you write, or I don't know, that's why I'm writing.
Or not basing off of real people or something. I'm kind of the opposite, because I thought like you shouldn't, and then so like I'm trying to like, and then I realized no, you can base off like reality, which I think is funny. It's like one of those like advice that they're like, you hear both,
right?
And then they're both like advertised as like the thing to do, but like you can just do whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, I think also too, for me it's always helpful to remember that, like, especially in first draft, is you can really do whatever you want, and even if you know it's not quite the right thing, you can change it later. It's fine.
I thought about showing you the decorations at Union Station in DC, but it's dark and cold out there, so instead I'm showing you the decor at my condo lobby. A horror fan, but I do remember loving some Goosebumps as a child. So this is pretty exciting. Let's see what R.L. Stine has to say to Rymos.
How do you approach writing about themes or scenes that get kind of dark or into like heavier issues, especially like with like children's
novels because
Yeah, well,
you can't go that deep.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to terrify kids, and seriously. And I have one rule. I have one rule for it, and for a Goosebumps book, or for a middle grade book, and the rule is that kids have to know that it couldn't really happen. They have to know that what happens in this story is a fantasy. It's not real. And if you establish that, you can go pretty far with the scares. You can make it pretty scary if they know that what you're doing can't happen, isn't real. The interesting thing, I think, is for when you write for young adults or for adults, you have to do the exact opposite. If you want your story to be believed, every detail has to be real. It all has to seem real, or else they're not going to buy into what horror or whatever your plot is. They won't buy into it. It has to seem real. It's the exact opposite of when you write for younger kids.
That makes me want to shift one of the questions that we've asked, especially looking at the chat and seeing what people are asking in relation to what you just said.
Yeah.
So some people are curious because most people know you as a horror writer. Have you ever experimented with other genres?
Well, I'm not real. I'm a funny writer. I never planned to be scary. It's embarrassing. Being scary wasn't even my idea. I was funny. I was Jovial Bob Stein for years. And I did a humor magazine for kids called Bananas for 10 years. And I wrote dozens of joke books. I only cared about being funny. And I always enjoyed horror, but I never thought about writing it. I'm not really into horror that much. But I was having lunch. This is a true embarrassing story. I was having lunch with this woman, Jean Feiwell, one day. Jean was at Scholastic at the time. She was a publisher at Scholastic. Now she has her own line, Feiwell and Friends at Macmillan. And she arrived at lunch, in a really bad mood. She was angry. She'd had a fight with a guy who wrote teen horror. And she sat down and she said, "I'm never working with him again. You could write a good teen horror novel. Go home and write a book called Blind Date." She even gave me the title. And I didn't know what she was talking about. What's a teen horror novel? I didn't know what. But I was at that point in my career, where you say yes to everything. Never say no to anything. I said, "Oh, sure, no problem. I'll go write Blind Date." And I went running to the bookstore to find out what teen horror was. And I read books by Lois Duncan and Christopher Pike and Diane Ho and all these people who were writing teen horror. And I read that to find out, what I should do. And I tried to figure out what I could do that would be a little bit different so I wouldn't be just like them. And I decided I'd make mine a little younger and a little less scary than the other people. And I wrote this book, Blind Date, and it came out. It was a #1 bestseller. I thought, wait a minute, I'd never been close to that list with the funny stuff. And a year later, she asked me to write another one. I wrote a book called Twisted, my second teen novel, #1 bestseller. And I thought, forget the funny stuff. I'm going to be scary. I've been scary ever since. That's how it happened. But it's embarrassing that I didn't think of it. It was her idea.
It is the last night of Nano, and of course I had a colleague out of work today, so I had to take on some of his tasks and had less time to sneak in a few words at work. And I was also finishing up a book for my rebel writing of writing a book review. But yeah, other than that, I gotta put my pedal to the metal. In terms of my fantasy novel, I have gotten through 3 chapters of skeleton writing. That would be chapters 37, 38, and 39. And as each chapter has progressed, well, first of all, none of them are at all finished or have the amount of scenes they're supposed to have. They have snippets of a few scenes and a lot of notes to myself. And so I got to chapter 39 and I'm the least confident in it ever because this is just not the type of writer I am. I'm somebody who writes things in order, and I want to have more of an understanding of the granular details of what came before for what impacts the granular details of what comes next. It's just, I don't know, maybe I need to revamp my outline, or maybe I should just come to terms with what type of writer I am. I'm certainly hoping that some of the ideas that came to me will help in the long and short run, and that maybe even some of the dialogue or something can, stay for a draft or two. But now I just need to refocus onto that rough drafting stage. Yeah, I'm anxious, I'm excited, let's get this thing done. To end a NaNoWriMo blog, semi-appropriately perhaps, I have a review of a writing craft book. This year I read Shut Up and Write the Book by Jenna Moreci, who has a popular AuthorTuber channel on YouTube. And I really enjoyed it, although in general I'm not really taking these sorts of craft books as a end-all be-all for my own writing. I just find them a little too maybe analytical or too generic sometimes, so I enjoy them for what they say about the writer. Like, you really get to kind of understand some of Jenna's own process through this book, which is really interesting, and I do think some of her advice, particularly about the intricacies of world building, I really did enjoy. And of course, it's also like a little bit of an insider into her own personality that you see on her YouTube channel, her raunchy sort of personality that you wouldn't get from many other books, craft or otherwise, so that's always fun. And yeah, one thing I will say I learned from this that I didn't know before is a certain type of story structure called the heroine's journey that stands in contrast to the hero's journey. In the heroine's journey, the hero or heroine of the story gets to a point where he or she isn't only accomplishing something for him or herself, but also for his or her community, like bringing the community together to accomplish something, which really struck me because I really do think that's ultimately what my novel is turning into. So that's pretty cool. And the more you know. Thanks, Jenna. And it is time to wrap up this NaNoWriMo finale vlog and NaNoWriMo 2023 in general. My general feelings about Nano Year 20 are a little underwhelming. I spent a lot of this year feeling behind and generally uninspired, and only got a smidgen of work done on my actual novel, I think. It was a weird conundrum, really, although, at the end I, pulled it all together. I got a lot of projects under my belt and got to the 50K. So, overall, looking back, it's a success, but I am hoping next year we'll feel a little more uniformly positive along the way. It is what it is, and doing Nano as long as I have, I know there's up years and down years. I don't know, I wasn't expecting the novel to be as complicated as it was, because I've been in my beta reading group and have been working on it very consistently for the last year. So it did come, you know, I've said this in other vlogs, that really it's, the reality is that Nano doesn't actually fit well with my noveling process, that I tend to go slower, and that's how I get things done. But at the end of the day, again, I did multiple projects, and even some of the skeleton stuff that I did for my novel I hope will be ultimately helpful. And you know, getting into December, I feel optimistic as well, as I've been continuing to write and do writerly things. I was able to polish off my couple of chapters that I wrote during Nano that weren't skeleton chapters, and I sent them to my beta reading group, and I've started to get their reactions, so we'll have to see how it goes. But ultimately, in my entire novel, I now have a little over 84,000 drafted words, and then my skeleton chapters are a few thousand more than that. So I think my whole idea of this novel being 90,000 words total is now out the window, at least for this draft, but progress is progress. Things are moving along. So yeah, you know, coming up in the very near future, I will be fleshing out those skeleton drafts, especially at the DC Writer Salon, which I'm continuing to attend regularly. And I have my beta reading group meetup coming up as well, so that'll be exciting. Yeah, and in technical news, I learned something good this year, that I started using my phone for a few segments of filming, and it really such a Luddite move, like, oh my gosh, this actually works, and I can make it look similar to using my camera, and it's a little less cumbersome when it comes to vlogging in public, so I might end up using it more in general. So there's that. But yeah, other than that, things are moving forward, so I feel really good about the writing journey, hopeful about, you know, bringing myself out of Nano 2023 and into the year of 2024. And in 2023, generally, I had some really great moments, like the publication of 2 short stories, and in fact, one of them was published in an ebook, but our editor recently released the paperback. So my short story Mishkan is in this paperback of They Tried to Kill Us, We Survived, Let's Eat. It's a Days of Awe anthology for Jewish-inspired stories, so that's pretty exciting. And I'll be talking about this on my next AuthorTube video, but I think before I get to that, I might pivot a little to some other BookTube content, like my page 112 tag for December. Stay tuned for that, and then after that I'll, you know, get into AuthorTube and this, so that'll be fun. And yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up what I have to say about Nano this year. Congratulations to everyone. If you participated at all, no matter how many words you got some work done, and I hope you feel proud of that, and I hope you're continuing into December and beyond, or if you're not continuing with writing, that you're feeling good and optimistic about what your next project will be. I'll be signing off for now, but thank you all so much for watching me throughout this month-long journey. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.